song I'm about to do is a song I wrote in 1989. And it also speaks about alienation. I hope this song would have gone away, but it seems to just be coming back and coming back again. It's a song I call 1990. So from the ghettos of Trinidad to the ghettos of LA, the same story. Nuclear warhead, do I see it torn down? And there's an army in retreat. I see the old colonials of Europe now become united. And that word, perestroika, it fills the streets. I see the eagle sitting on the shoulder of the bear. Or maybe it's the other way around. Is this the calm before the hellfire? Or is our tomorrow really heaven bound? But 1990, the blood still flows in Bogota, and from Beirut to Johannesburg, the river don't stop. 1990, third world children still wander in their boats, in their jungles, in their deserts, until they dry. It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah. To the ghettos of LA, same story. Nuclear warhead, do I see it torn down? And there's an army in retreat. I see the old colonials of Europe now become united. And that word, perestroika, it fills the streets. I see the eagle sitting on the shoulder of the bear. Or maybe it's the other way around. Is this the calm before the hellfire? Or is our tomorrow really heaven bound? But 1990, the blood still flows in Bogota, and from Beirut to Johannesburg, the river don't stop. Small children still wander in their boats, in their jungles, in their deserts, until they dry. It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah. There is a black man on the run through a lonely Beijing street. There he goes. My God, he's running again. This time through Brooklyn, Howard Beach. And there he runs again through the streets of Soweto and Bensonhurst. And I'm saying, Lord, so the story goes. And the ghostly man from the past, they call him Selma, Alabama. He just shrugs and says, deja vu, I suppose. 1990, will our children stand firm? Or will they keep running and running and running till the end of time? 1990, will hands of love ever reach out? Or will they be there just to strengthen the crime? It is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything just seems the same as we move into the next century. 1990, please make a liar of me. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, oh, oh. LA's burning down. It reminds me of Harlem and what's in the 60s. Same problem, same country, and King is still the name. People shouting power to we the people, and equal rights and justice is still the game. I remember over 25 years ago, America stood up and said, this won't happen no more. Now you tell me, what have we become? Will the beast always defeat the beauty? Is this land just another house of the rising sun? 1990, will we see a tomorrow where our children will truly be free? 1990, is it joy, is it sorrow, as we move into the 21st century? I'm saying it is strange. The more we change, the more we rearrange. Everything stays the same as we move into the next century. 1990. Make a believer of me.
King David Rudder, the philosopher of Calypso. One of my favorite. 1990. Will the beast always overcome the beauty? 1990, please make a liar of me. 1990, please make a believer of me. David Rudder wrote and sang that song at the end of the Cold War. And he predicts that nothing will change for Black people, for third world people. And he asks, please make a liar of me or make a believer of me. 1990, 33 years later, what has changed? The more we change, rearrange, everything seems the same. So says David Rudder in that classic Calypso, 1990. He asked, must the beast always overcome the beauty? The beauty is a free people. Our Guyanese people, our Caribbean people represents a beauty. Out of forced bondage and not so forced bondage, we have forged a beautiful country, a beautiful region. But there are always beasts with power in their hands who always try to overcome that beauty. David Rudder asked the question, must the beast always overcome the beauty? Often when things get a little rough, I retreat into the expression of our people, whether it's in our music, our dance, our prose, that place where we retreat to, where the oppressor cannot see us. I always go back, whether it's the poems of Martin Carter, the poems of Bob Marley, the poems of David Rudder, the dance that our people invent, always moving their bodies to a tune that the oppressor cannot understand. Must the beast always overcome the beauty? God has blessed us with some oil. It will not be there forever. And I'm sure that God intends for that oil to make us beautiful. But alas, the beast is trying to tarnish that beauty, using the oil as a form of ugliness. And so our struggle continues to be a struggle of beauty versus ugliness. The beauty of our people reaching out for compensation for centuries of slavery and colonialism. But the beast among us, who tries always to cover that beauty. We had the ugliness recently. First of all, the beauty of our courts. using the law for justice, for which it was intended, using the law to preserve our beauty as a nation, the beauty of our consciousness, and the beauty of our conscience. The court upheld that beauty. Say at the end of the day, Guyana matters, Guyanese matter. Painting our beauty on the canvas, like the artistry of a Lawrence Rowe or a Sir Frank Worrell or Rohan Babulal Kanai. Just as they painted that beauty on the canvas of our nation, the court has said oil must be as beautiful as a falling hook shot from Rohan Kanai. Or Carl Hooper, Sir Carl as the Barbadians call him, using the gift of a willow in his hands to paint a beauty. The tenacity of a Shivnarine Chandrapal, saying never, never must this beauty fade. The cumulative beauty of our people is being snatched away every day by the beast among us. And so the court ruled that Guyana matters. And then the beast seeks to threaten the court, to threaten the beauty of our court. To bat like a slugger, batting not for Guyana, but batting for others. The court ruled that there must be insurance to cover the ugliness of an oil spill. My God, at the very least, do we not deserve that? Our government, acting like the beast, said it will appeal the ruling of our court. First of all, it attacks the court, dictating to the court. And then it appeals against its own people. I know sometimes as political people we are given to, blowing things up a little bit bigger than they are. But even as I try to blow this up, it blows up itself because this is important. Almost 70 years after independence, our leaders are batting against our independence project. Make no mistake, oil can open up the door for that promised land, that independence, that freedom. It can. But will it? David Rudder, the more we change, rearrange, everything stays the same. 2023, please make a liar of me. Please make a liar of me. You all know the story. You all know the story. From the time the announcement was made in 2015 that we found oil in 2019, December, then we started to pump the oil to know there have been more questions than answers. And at the center of it is our government. I don't care whether you voted for that government or not. I don't care. This is a matter that supersedes your party. The Environmental Protection Agency is meant to do exactly that, to protect our environment and by extension, protect us as Guyanese. We have the soldiers in the army who protect our borders, our physical borders. The EPA is meant to protect our environmental borders. If a soldier goes over to the enemy side and fight against his nation, he or she will be court-martialed. Is that not so? When our government fights against our country, neglecting to protect our environmental conscience and integrity, it ought to be court-martialed. But we've got to get the story straight. You know, I always say when you fight, you got to know what you're fighting with, and you got to know what you're fighting for. And I don't believe that any issue is beyond the comprehension of the masses of people. And so tonight we come to talk about that case and the environment. And who better to talk with us and to us than a man who has been there as head of the EPA and who understands the world of oil and gas and the implications. Dr. Vincent Adams, I know he's been making the rounds, but we have our own style here at Politics 101. We come at it a little bit different, and that helps if each of us comes at it from a different angle. We cover the gamut. The more we change, rearrange, everything seems to remain the same. Must the beast continue always to overcome the beauty? Brother Vincent Adams, good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. How are you doing? I'm telling you, I'm not sure if you need me. I was sitting down here and I thought, I said, well, why does he need me? I mean, you've got this thing down pat. I mean, it's as simple as that. It's you know, I never heard that analogy to you know, the beauty and the beast, but you are absolutely correct. I like the way that you painted that canvas there. But what I don't like, Dr. Hines, is the washing away of the canvas.
Ah, the washing away of the canvas. I know you were a former cricketer.
Yeah, I was getting a little bit upset there that, you know, you're talking about all these stylish guys and you never even acknowledge me.
I know circumstances would have prevented you from painting on that canvas in the same way that Rohan Kanahi with that falling hook shot, or what I thought was Roy Frederick's best shot, the extra cover drive. I've never seen a better extra cover drive than Roy Fredericks and Zaire Abbas. Those two, and the extra cover drive, as you know, like the straight drive, is a very difficult shot.
Yes, it is.
to play. But those are men that you would have played with, and so you understand what I meant.
Sure, right. As a matter of fact,
Them-
Fredo and I opened together. We opened
There
together.
you go.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. And we can't say Fredo and not thinking Perth.
Yes,
1970,
169.
169. In those days, we listened on radio. And
Lillian
it's as if you were
Thompson.
there reporting.
Lillian Thompson and a Puerto Rican.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. My brother, talk to us about this case. First of all, give us the ABC.
Yeah.
What those who brought the case were asking the court to find. And what did the court find?
Good. Well, of course, to the audience, welcome. And thanks for having me, Dr. Hines. Always a privilege to be on your show. But this here is obviously a landmark case in many respects. And it's not just about winning a case. It's winning a case for the entire nation. Not only for the nation, Dr. Hines, this is winning a case for the entire survivability of the Caribbean. If there is a spill, what happens to the Caribbean? A spill can wash away the entire Caribbean, starting with Trinidad, and every place has all their beaches and their tourism and fishing and everything would be gone. So going back a little bit, when I arrived, as a matter of fact, today, I mean, it is so annoying, Dr. Hines, to hear these guys just lying through their teeth without any shame. It's just as if they're not reading anything. Today I was listening to the Attorney General. The Attorney General is lying through his teeth. Besides the Vice President, as you mentioned, threatening the judiciary. But this scare came into being when I arrived at the EPA. And there was no coverage, none whatsoever, for another spill. So I told Exxon basically, I will not sign any permit unless Guyana is protected in the case of an oil spill. And they pushed back. They threatened to bring in the president of Exxon to talk to the president of Guyana. I tell them I really don't care. Even if they bring God, I am not changing my mind. So that was how that unlimited liability coverage got into the permit. Today, would you believe this, Dr. Hines? I mean, when you think that you've heard the worst, today I saw a video from Mr. Nandalan, who's the Attorney General and is supposed to understand everything that is in this case. Do you know what Mr. Nandalan is saying, which even makes their decision to appeal even worse? He is saying that the PPP, were the ones who put this clause into the permit. It's a blatant lie. I was the one when I arrived, put it into that permit, but even though it's not relevant, but they just lie for the fun of it. But now they put it in the permit, but now they're appealing what they put in the permit. So they do not even make sense. They're trying to get out of something, trying to take a little bit of credit here, and it's coming back to bite them. But anyway, so here's what the complainant asked for. What we put into the permit when I was at EPA, what Exxon said, well, I'm going to buy insurance. And I said, well, how much insurance are you going to buy? Well, they came up for us with $2 billion. I said, well, do you know what the spill in the Macondo spill in the Gulf cost? At the time, it was $70 billion. I said, so that's a drop in the bucket. So he said, well, what do you want us to do? I said, well, I want the parent company to guarantee. Just put it on a piece of paper. Because here's what happened, Dr. Hines. Exxon name is not on any documents. I don't think people understand that. Exxon name is not on the contract. It's not in any of these permits. What they did, they formed what is called a limited liability company. And what a limited liability company is, that's what these big deep pocket companies form to insulate them from liability. So EPGL, which is the SO Exploration Guyana Limited, EEPGL was the company that Exxon formed, and it's not even incorporated in Guyana. It's incorporated in the Bahamas. But anyway, Exxon incorporate the limited liability. They have no assets, none. Okay, because they were going to build their assets from the production of oil. So I said, if we've got a spill, he said, well, we're self-insured. EPGL is going to cover it. I said, you believe that people are stupid or what? If we get a spill, costing billions of dollars, EPGL doesn't have any money. EPGL walks away. Exxon has no liability. I want a parent company guarantee, meaning the parent of this company to put their name on a guarantee to say that they will cover all expenses for a spill, any type of spill, all expenses over and above whatever insurance you've got. So you could go and get whatever insurance you got. And they agreed it, Dr. Hines. That's why you signed it into the permit. That made it law. When we were close to signing, Exxon was close to signing that agreement, guess what they did? And when the PIARA came up, because they were dragging their feet on signing this guarantee, I said, okay, if you don't sign it, I will not sign the PIARA permit. So they're hustling now. And right then, when they were ready to sign that guarantee that didn't cost them anything, that say anything that happened over and above, we're going to take care of it, they sent me on leave. Not only did they send me on leave, they got rid of the EPA attorney that was working this agreement. They were coming in with draft agreement. He was working it, bringing it to me. They got rid of, and then they scrapped that agreement. They dumped it. So now, well, of course, you remember I started, I carried out a campaign because I said this is gross negligence, and they just disdain for the nation and the people, health and well-being and the environment. So you remember I've been campaigning since I left for this particular issue, that it's in the law and they're operating illegally and it has to stop. So that's what triggered this lawsuit. So all the lawsuit was asking for is to enforce the law. It wasn't asking for anything that wasn't there. It was to enforce the law. And that's exactly what the justice did. The justice said, without question, as a matter of fact, the justice said that this here was an unambiguous case. The justice said this was a clear-cut case as far as she's concerned. I mean, and she had some very, very tough statements against him. She said the government is now submissive and relegated itself to a state of laxity and abdicated its responsibilities, thereby putting this nation and its people in grave potential danger of calamitous results, of calamitous disaster. I didn't say that. Mr. Norton didn't say that. Mr. Ramjatan didn't say that. You didn't say that. It says it's an egregious state. It's in an egregious state of affairs that engulfed the EPA in a quagmire of its own making. It says it has descended into a state of slumber at critical juncture of an emerging oil sector. Engaged in a course of action. Listen to this. Engaged in a course of action to undermine and erode the terms and conditions of its own permit. So it's exactly what I said. And then it says, notwithstanding these grave allegations of dereliction of its functions and potential calamitous consequences, adopted a stance of avoidance, concealment, and secrecy, and in unison with Exxon, agreed that the proceedings ought to be struck for reasons the court found to be without merit. EPGL was engaged in this ingenious attempt, calculated to deceive when it sought to dilute its liability and settled obligations stipulated and expressed in clear and unambiguous terms at condition 14, which is what I and my staff wrote. So this was a clear indictment of the government not enforcing, which is what I've been calling for. I've been headlining articles thinking that I'm going to shame them. This is what the government did. And now the unbelievable thing that the government has done is now to appeal this. Exxon didn't appeal because Exxon knew from day one that this here is something they committed to. They have no way out. So the government is now representing Exxon against its own people, but it's not only its own people, Dr. Hyde, it's against its own permit that they have put in there. Even though I put the language in the permit, they copied into all other permits. So that is what this case is about. And then, it's so, it's so sickening to hear the vice president and and the attorney general at that. I don't think the attorney general understands that he does not work. He's not the attorney general of the EPA, of the government. He's the attorney general of the people of the nation, not the political party. But he doesn't understand that. He got up today and I saw the video. I mean, it was sickening to hear the attorney general. And then they're misrepresenting and distorting and lying about what the judge said. They're trying to fool and confuse people. They're saying, well, there's nothing as unlimited insurance. The judge never said anything about unlimited insurance. Unlimited insurance doesn't exist. What the judge said, the permit says you must have insurance. Whatever that number, they said they said they have 600 million. So that's already there. But what the judge says, which is what's in the law that we put in when I was there, they says that all it is that they're asking for, which is what we were asking for, is the parent company, which is Exxon, to sign a piece of paper to say they're going to cover everything over and above that amount. It's like you, Dr. Hines, you signing, let's say, your kid or something go take a loan, and you decide to co-sign on them, okay, to buy a house, and they stop paying their mortgage. They're coming back on you as the parent, or similar to your health insurance or your car insurance. You buy insurance, but insurance is only going to cover a certain amount. You've got to cover the rest. It's exactly the same thing here. So that's what the judge said. The judge never imposed any new law. All the judge said, this is what's in the law, and you've been neglecting. And I'm ruling that you've been neglectful, and you have to abide with it. Exxon knows it. That is why Exxon is not appealing. But this government now is carrying water and everything else for Exxon. How could you appeal against your own people and against your own laws that you have set? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever, Dr. Hines. None whatsoever.
No, it doesn't make sense. And as I said, the EPA, as it says, the Environmental Protection Agency, is to protect our environmental integrity, just as the army is tasked with protecting our territorial integrity. And if a soldier goes against the army and goes over to the other side, you be court-martialed. And that is what this government is doing. Now, let me ask you a basic question, but I think it's a very important question in terms of how the government is going to move. Dr. Adams, are you anti-oil company? Are you anti-Exxon? Are you anti-investment?
Here, Dr. Hines, I spent most of my life, I spent in the biggest capitalist country in the whole world. My job, as I worked at the highest level of the U.S. government, and my training and the way that I operate, as a matter of fact, I couldn't get to that level if I did not carry out the mandates of the government of the United States of America. So nobody can lecture me on capitalism. As a matter of fact, every year we used to have a training. All the senior executive like myself who run the operations, the day-to-day operations of the government, we had to go to MIT and Harvard to come up with policies that could keep America competitive. So I am always in favor of all. I've always said that. Even in the United States, it's the same thing. We're in favor of business and commerce and everything. However, it has to be done in the right way. And protection of the health, safety, and the environment is the number one criteria that we use for everybody's performance, even for the people who get the political people that comes in when the government changes, in their performance plans and in our performance plan at my level, the number one item on that is protection of the health, safety, and the environment. So it doesn't matter what we do. That's our number one criteria there when they're going to be judging our performance. So absolutely not. I've said that. We can put, and the thing is, we've got the technology to do both. It's just that these folks, this government here, I know what it is, but Exxon is just taking advantage of weak minds and people who are in it for themselves and their friends and families. I asked the question, Dr. Hines, how come when I was at EPA, Exxon did everything? Anytime I tell them to jump, they say how high, which is what they're used to in the United States. And because they knew, and that's the first thing I told them and all other companies that came in, I said, we will not accept any standard that you don't have to abide with in the United States and other countries. And I said, that I was a regulator in the United States, so I know what the standard is. All you remember, I don't know, well, you probably never used to follow it at that time. When I was there, we shut down the biggest mining companies in Guyana. Just shut them down because they were violating. They were, they had accidents and stuff. And we said, no, time out, shut them. But and some other companies, we started firing them. Exxon, we took Exxon to court. We shut down Exxon all production when they weren't stopping the flaring. And as soon as I left, they got rid of all that. For example, this government has now incentivized Exxon to damage the environment, like flaring. They told Exxon, we said flaring is not allowed, period. They went and charged Exxon a paltry fee to flare as much as they want. So now Exxon is flaring as much as they want, as long as they can afford to pay for it. So that's the lawlessness that we've got going on. And they do not want, that's why they're getting in the way of this lawsuit and threatening the legal system. And this here is deliberate, Dr. Hines, because what this is doing, this threat to the judiciary, Jagdio knows what he's doing. It's going to cause a chilling effect because this case proceeds. It's to scare the judges as the case proceeds. They're going to say, oh, shucks, they're watching us here now. Here's this guy, the president, the vice president is threatening us. This is going to cause a chilling effect on this judiciary in their as they move forward in this case and other cases. So that's what it's I like to call him a Putin-esque type of attitude that he's bringing to Guyana. Dictatorship. There's no question about it. There's no question about it, Dr. Hines.
Yeah, Dr. Adams, as I prepare for this program, I went and did some minor research on the question that Nandlal and others are raising, whether in fact the court has the power to tell a regulatory agency, quote unquote, how to do its work. And I went to the US, where I think you have perhaps the most active separation of powers doctrine, but also allied to separation of powers, as you know, is the whole notion of checks and balances.
Yep.
And I found so many cases in which the court intervened. The case in West Virginia with coal, where the Supreme Court has intervened. And so therefore, this whole question of the court not having the power to tell a regulatory agency how to do its job, I think it's nonsense. I mean, the court can't tell an agency how to do its job on a day-to-day basis, but it has the authority to make sure that that agency does not violate the law.
I mean, it's so, and the disappointing, it's embarrassing, to be honest, Dr. Hines, to hear the Attorney General of all people spouting this nonsense. It's either through ignorance, or he's lazy, or he's never been any place, or he doesn't read anything. This is everyday stuff. When I was in the United States, like I said, I was working for the U.S. government on the regulatory side, and at one time I was working for British Patrol. But it happens every day. Every day. When I went to the EPA in Guyana, we had one lawyer, and the first thing I tell him, we didn't have an engineer to be on, believe it or not. So I said those has to be a priority to go out and get, because I said it, two things that you that are absolutely necessary at an EPA is science and engineering, because that's what is grounded in, and the law, because you're going to get all kinds of lawsuits that are going to be coming, whether it's for or against. We're going to be living in the court. If it's a common practice. All of the regulations, every single regulation in the United States, every day you've got somebody, people appealing when you make a decision against them. But I have never heard an EPA or a regulator that went against themselves. It's always, the fight is always between the regulator and the contractor.
That's right.
I've never, it's so stupid, and you cannot here, Dr. Hines, just for a little bit of levity, I normally, coming out in my career, and I'm among a lot of high-level professionals, presidents of companies, the likes of Exxon and them. And of course, I always big up Guyana. Because, a lot of people believe when you come from those third world countries, you guys live, we live in uncivilized. So I always big it up. And now I'm embarrassed to even tell them what's going on. You see, when I share these type of things, these guys are making me out to be a liar. They said that could never happen, Vince. You're just kidding us, because they're looking at these type of things, and it's so stupid that it's just incredible that that something like that is going on. And Nandalal, who should know much better. Here's the other thing he said. Well, no part in terms of what other countries are. Well, the United States, he checked the United States, and they don't have anything unlimited liability coverage. Well, anybody with common sense or knows anything, Exxon does not have a child company or a subsidiary in the United States. Everything on the Exxon, it says Exxon. It says Exxon. It doesn't say it's EPGL or somebody, because they cannot play those games to set up a company to shield them from liability. That is why when they come to our countries, they bring in these little companies, and they're not signing anything and putting these little companies as front companies. They cannot do that in the U.S. Exxon name, I would tell the Attorney General, let him go and find a single operation on the Exxon where they have a limited liability company that runs their operation for them. And let me tell you, there's a case going on right now, Dr. Hine, in England. And I didn't even know it because of, whatever happened in Nigeria, they decided to move it to England, etc. A case where Shell, who operates in Nigeria, they've been having spills all over the place over the years. A bunch of citizens decide to come together and sue Shell. You know what is Shell's defense, Dr. Hines? In England, this case is going on right now. Shell's defense is that they are not liable for their subsidiary company that is operating in Nigeria. That's their defense. So now you tell me, why can't we learn from these type of things? That's exactly where Exxon wants to go with this. Tell me, we just common sense, street sense. If somebody, here it is, you're talking every single day, because even after the case was finished, Mr. Rutledge, I like to call him Master Rutledge because he believes he owns Guyana, and probably, that's the impression he got because of the power that he has over the government. Mr. Rutledge says that the judge failed to recognize their assets and their ability to pay for any spill, which is exactly what they had told me for. So if you're sure that you're never going to walk with, why is it so difficult for you to put that on a piece of paper to say exactly what you said? you know what? I will never walk away from any and all spill. Let me put it on a piece of paper. That tells you something, Dr. Hines, that they are hedging and they are not want to put themselves at risk because they know that it's a possibility that the spill is going to occur. And if nothing is on that piece of paper, then EPGL, which is a limited liability company, is going to suffer the consequences, and they don't have anything to pay with it. So they're going to pack up, file bankruptcy. They're gone. Exxon is gone, scotch-free. And then here's another stupidity. The vice president is now going around and spouting this nonsense. He says, well, we could seize EPGL assets. You know, the same company that Exxon has that is operating in the child companies that incorporated in the Bahamas. We can seize their assets. Dr. Hines, I wonder if these guys, they don't know, they're so ignorant. Though all of EPGL's assets belong to the government of Guyana, they purchased those assets from Cost Oil. It says in the contract itself also that when the contract is over or if it has to be terminated, they have to turn over all of those assets to the government of Guyana. So what is Vice President is saying that we're going to go seize our own assets to pay for this bill. So nothing makes any sense whatsoever, Dr. Hines. Absolutely nothing. And then you get them spouting, trying to discredit the judge who I found to be outstanding in the analysis, the understanding of the technical, and everything that was in that permit. I mean, even though I've been close to it, I could not have said it any better and explain it any better than the way that judge explained it. It was just an outstanding. It was simple, as the judge said, unambiguous, and all it is again, doctor, it was for them to follow the law. It wasn't the judge didn't intrude, which is what they tried to make it, and come in and say, well, okay, we're passing a new rule. Absolutely not. It was there already. All the judge said that you're not enforcing it. So they're blowing smoke. And the other thing, Dr. Hines, the only reason why you see they're appealing this case is for political reasons, one. And secondly, they're abused. It is because it's taxpayers' dollars that they pay. Because they already have to pay the complainants $1.5 million. Of course, they got to pay the lawyers that they hire to help them out for EPA. And then as they appeal, it's going to cost the taxpayers money. It's an abuse of taxpayers' money. If this was coming out of Nandalal and Bharat Jagdio's pockets, they would have never appealed this. We can take that money. A bunch of poor people all over the country need food, shelter, and whatever, water, and all the necessities of life. That money could have been going towards that, but they're wasting it because it's not coming out of their pockets. So it's fine. We can spend as much as we want to go through this stupid lawsuit because and they're going to take it all the way to the CCJ, and it's a slam dunk case. That's what I've told the complainants. It's clear in the judge said, it's clear and unambiguous. It couldn't have been any better. Of course, I take credit because I wrote it, but it was very clear. And of course, I'm a simple guy, and I come out from a very humble background and stuff. So I don't write fancy and that type of stuff. So it's plain language. No, nothing sophisticated. It's plain language. Plain language. It says, "Thou shalt have insurance." Okay, that's a EPGL. You have to go there and buy insurance. However, if insurance doesn't cover the cost of a spill, then the parent company, which is Exxon, the deep pockets, have to sign that guarantee to say, okay, whatever is over and above that insurance, we will pay for it. Exxon said that that's exactly what they will do. They will never walk away, except they're reneging on putting it on a piece of paper that they were already ready to sign when I was at the EPA. But this government, they threw all of that. They got rid of even the attorney and dumped all of that, in addition to some other things we can talk about another time. So those are the facts, Dr. Hines. Those are the raw facts.
Dr. Adams, I know that you've answered this question 1,000 times, but one more time helps. How, tell us what Guyana stands to lose
Oh, gee.
if there is an oil spill, first of all, in terms of damaging the environment, but in terms of the cleaning up. If
Oh.
you don't have this insurance that the courts is saying, and you wrote into the thing, what will happen if there's an oil spill?
We gotta hope and pray to God that something like that doesn't happen. Like I said before, um, the Macondo spill in the Gulf cost 145 billion US dollars.
Ooh.
145 billion US dollars, and it's still counting, by the way, because what happens when you get these spills? It would take decades or even centuries to get things back to normal. In the meantime, if it would wash away, because the models show us before it would wash away, like it would touch the 14 islands in the Caribbean. The first island that goes is Trinidad. The entire eastern coast of Trinidad, from north to south, the beaches and everything would be gone. That means the entire Caribbean Sea would be washed in oil. No fishing, no tourism for those countries. Even Venezuela, the coast of Venezuela would be in jeopardy. So if you really want to piss off Venezuela, we talking about other things, you talking about an excuse, a legitimate excuse to come after us. So that entire Caribbean would be gone. Guyana, we would be bankrupt. The Caribbean would be bankrupt.
Yeah, and when you think about the revenues that come from tourism and fishing and so forth, I mean, we are already polluted in the Caribbean as it is, and now with an oil spill, the rest of the Caribbean will be dead.
And Guyana, imagine 145 billion. Let me say we got 145 billion. A spill such as the Macondo spill, even if it's half, right? Let me say that's 72 billion, or even if it's quarter that size, which is highly likely, right? We're still looking at 35, 40 billion US dollars. Our entire national budget is between 2 and 3 billion. So imagine we're looking at about 15, or if you take it to, we're looking at almost 50 times our national budget. Where are we going to get that money? So that is why the insurance, the parent company guarantee is so important. And here's the other thing: it's not only us, Dr. Hines. I was reading in today's newspaper, Skyshore News.
Yeah.
The key Exxon shareholders, not me or you or anybody, the key Exxon shareholders, Mercy Investment, is raising serious concern about the consequences of a spill. What would happen so that now they're pushing at their board meetings and stuff for Exxon to run a scenario as to come up with the same answer you were asking me. What would the consequence be? What would be the cost? It's in today's newspapers, in the Skyshore News. And this is the key shareholder of Exxon. They're saying here, something? I am getting really worried now, because I ain't got no confidence in how you guys are operating there, which is what they said before, by the way, when they had a shake-up a year or two ago in Exxon board. They had a big shake-up because they were concerned that Exxon was not doing a good job of being a good environmental stewardship. So they had a shake-up in the board. And now the key stakeholders are coming out and saying, you need to come back and tell us what would be the consequences of an oil spill offshore Guyana. That's the question that you were asking. It was also it was asked up to today. It's in today's newspapers, the Skyshore News.
Yep. Are you optimistic that if this goes all the way to the CCJ, that the ruling of our justice in our High Court would prevail?
Without question, Doctor. I said from the get-go, because from the time I left EPA and they started hoodwinking, as a matter of fact, Here's what they did. The language that I had put into the permit, they added a clause in there to dilute what it is. And the judge spotted it and slam dunked it completely. And that is why in one of the quotes she said it was, it was exactly that. They're just hoodwinking it. Yeah, exactly. That's the article there. But the judge slammed down that paragraph because they tried to be slick and devious by putting in this clause 14.3 in there, which is they added that clause to what I had, which was simple and plain language. You got to get insurance plus parent company liability. So they put in this clause. Here's their trick, that there has to be an estimate of the damage. You cannot estimate no damage beforehand. It's impossible. If they had tried to estimate the damage at Exxon Valdez and the Macondo spill, that would have been impossible. They didn't know that it was going to cost $145 billion. So, and that's the same thing when you hear the vice president saying, "Well, we need predictable decision. We need predictable decision." That's what he's telling the judiciary. No, that's the most nonsensical thing that I've ever heard. How? Well, then if your decision ought to be predictable, you don't need a judiciary. That's basically what he's saying. That is thinking. Because if everybody knows what the decision is going to be, why do you need a judge or a judiciary? But I don't think it's nonsensical. That's the way this guy is a dictator, and he's sending the message to these judges to intimidate them and to cause a chilling effect. That's no accident when he said that the decision should be predictable. And that's why we've got to admire this brave and intelligent judge who made this decision, because nobody can question it. But to get back to your question, I have no question whatsoever that they're going to take this case all the way to play for time and for political expediency to show that, and coming out with these false statements. But the facts are the facts. It has nobody in their right mind would go against it. That is why Exxon has pulled aside. Exxon knows it. Exxon is not going to go look stupid in front of anybody. But these guys doesn't care how much they lie and how stupid they look. They're going to take it all the way. And I have no confidence. I mean, I have no doubt whatsoever that at the end of the day, there's no other ruling on this. I mean, the judges, there's nothing clearer than this, Dr. Hines. And I've said that from day one.
Yeah. Has this situation been replicated in any other part of the world where you find a country appealing against itself?
Dr. Hines, this here is the most asinine thing that I've ever seen. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's embarrassing when I tell my friends. Look, I call up one of my friends the other night, and I said, he didn't believe me, right? He's a professional like me. He didn't believe me. And I tell him, okay, tune in to this show that I'm going to be on. And he could not believe it when he got off. He said, is this a real country? You guys are got to be out there. He said, no way, Dr. Hines, nothing. I don't even believe, well, maybe Russia has this kind of stuff, but nowhere else in the civilized world or in a democratic society would this ever happen. I know that for a fact. Nowhere else. This here, a government appealing against, and it's not only against its own people, Dr. Hines, it's against itself, and it's against its own writing, even though it was copied. It's again exactly what it said. And then today itself, the Attorney General comes out and made a statement that said that they put it in. Yeah, so they're appealing against the same thing that now he's saying that they put that parent company in, and they're appealing against it.
They appeal against themselves.
I mean, Dr. Hines, this year, it would have been with the beating that they've gotten over this particular case by myself and all the other folks. The judge gave the government a way out. The judge gave them a way out. They could have said, well, oh, they could have just tell Exxon, well, sorry, I tried my best for you. But again, the judge said that this is it. We got to follow the rule of law. The judge gave them a way out, and they just blew it. I don't know, for whatever reason. There must be something hidden there, Dr. Hines, that a lot of us are not privy to. But so for whatever reason, they have now become, like people calling the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, the Exxon Protection Agency. That's what it has become. So there might be some things going on as to other reasons, Dr. Hines, that we may not know of, that may be enticing to them. But it doesn't make any sense. Eventually, this case will be over, and the people will have won.
Doc, we have been getting some funds that we didn't expect. You have the wars going on, and the price of oil has gone up, and so forth. Are you confident that the government has been drawing out the money? Are you confident that we are doing the right thing, even in these early days? Are you confident or not confident that we are doing the right thing? Because as you know, the price of oil fluctuates.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not just a war can cause it to fluctuate.
Yes.
I mean, the actions of OPEC countries, for example, can do affect the price of oil. What are we really making sense in the way our government has been approaching the oil industry?
Absolutely not. Well, the first thing, and this straddles across political lines, by the way.
Yeah.
We had a really bad contract, and I don't know if you recall, I was the first person, the very first one, before this call for renegotiation became popular. So when people talk about my affiliation with the opposition, heck, I've got more friends probably in the government than I have in the opposition, because I always keep it straight. It's what's best for the government. That's always been my forte. Anyway, I was asked to review that contract when I was discovered in 2015. I was asked by the government to review the 1999 contract, which was signed by the PPP, to sign, for the new to revise that contract. And I sent them a 12-page document, and everything that I said there is coming to pass. That contract basically was not changed, except for the 1999 contract. My 12-page document was pushed aside, and from what I gathered, they said that I was wanting to be too tough on Exxon, and I'm going to drive Exxon out to the country, which I told my friends, I said, you guys got to be out of your mind. Exxon ain't going nowhere. We are accounting for, even with the 11 billion barrels, we are now accounting for close to 1/3 of all of Exxon's oil in place. All the oil that they've got in their reservoirs, we are accounting for that amount. I said, Exxon ain't going nowhere. And we allowed Exxon to believe that they've got the leverage over us. They want us worse than we want them. Exxon was almost going close to bankruptcy when we saved them. And there are two fields that they put everything into, Guyana and the West Texas field. It's so something that that's where I built my petroleum career, is in the West Texas, the same field. So it's kind of ironic that that it's just like if I'm following them around or something. But in terms of the contract, that contract has to change. And here's the other hoax that this government has pulled on its people. With all the outcry for renegotiation, remember renegotiation, Glenn Lal and all of us calling for renegotiation. When the government was in opposition, they said that the coalitions was allowing Exxon to do whatever they want to do, they stole their patrimony. And as soon as they get into office, they will renegotiate this contract. And then when they get into the office, Not only that, they're saying that they never said that. And even though they're on video and in parliament saying exactly the same thing. So guess what they've done? So they said they're going to come up with a new contract, except that the new contract does not apply to Exxon in the Starbuck block. They come up with this new gimmick of a contract to distract from that issue of the renegotiation of the Starbuck block, and coming up with these new oil blocks, the shallow water oil blocks. And I want to bet you, Dr. Hines, that Exxon has already gone with all of the glut of the oil that will not be touched. So they're distracting from everybody. And every day you hear them talking, well, we're not getting comments from the opposition, etc. It's a distraction. As a matter of fact, I tell my friends in the opposition, don't even ignore them. Let them keep the attention on the Exxon oil block, which is the Starboard block, which has all the hog of the oil, not these new blocks. And on top of that, the new investors, and a lot of Guyanese, I know a lot of Guyanese who want to come in and invest, but the price may be so high that is discouraging them. They're getting a worse deal than Exxon got.
Yeah.
So Exxon got everything, shut up everything, and hey, they say, well, okay, you take the left, you gotta go ahead. Y'all take the left. And so that's where the government is taking people down that rat hole. Follow me down that rat hole, and so that you could be distracted, so that we all can forget about the renegotiation of the Starbuck block, and where we're only getting 14.5%. We imagine Guyana is only getting 14.5%, and Exxon and its partners are getting 85.5%. And then we're allowing these people to put up these billboards across Guyana saying that we're getting 52.5%. I had lambasted them about that in the media. They've got billboards all over saying that Guyana is getting 52.5%. It's a big lie. It's a blatant lie. We're getting 14.5%. Those are the facts. Those are the facts.
These are the facts. Dr. Vincent Adams here tonight, bringing us up to speed on what's been happening since the court ruled that Exxon must meet its obligations as far as insurance is concerned. And then our government appealing that ruling with patriotism on the part of our government. Closing thoughts, Dr. Adams.
Well, and this year, by the way, is just the start, because what has happened, and I only spent 20 months, by the way, it was right in the middle of COVID, but the EPA it was a sea change in terms of the attitude of the employees. When I arrived there, people were just leaving. After everybody saw where the EPA was going, we could not take off the amount of applicants and high-skilled people that were coming in. We set up all kinds of programs to build capacity. They've torn all of that down. One of the biggest things that we've got, all the criticisms about EPA right now, one of the biggest things that we did in terms of building capacity, the World Bank, we worked with the World Bank. The World Bank gave us $1 million US dollars, brought in an export. We built an entire department, oil and gas unit, to bring in highly skilled petroleum, reservoir, drilling, geologists, etc. 36-member unit so that we could understand and have the same firepower as Exxon to be on those drill ships 24/7. You know what they did as soon as I left? They scrapped that. They threw that aside, and then bring out this stupid nonsense that they've got satellite to discover when there's an oil spill. When you see an oil spill in the water, it's too late. You need your people on board in the control rooms to look over their shoulders to see what's going on. Here's the other thing besides and that was just one of the things that they tore down. The other thing that they tore down, and this man has no shame. He's going around every time he talk about this capping stock that they're responsible for. That was put in there by us, and it's a capping stock after the Macondo spill that spilled. I mean, remember that oil was flowing 87 days. So what they did, they invented this big, heavy piece of iron pipe, and it's a big piece of equipment with pipes and everything, weighing like 50 to 100 tons, so that they can bring it and put it on top of the well that is flowing to stop the gush. So that can tell you, the faster you can get that to the site, the better. We, myself at EPA and Dr. Bino, who had the Department of Energy, so we told Exxon to give us a plan. The forest came in with 20 days. They're going to get there in 20 days. We said, you're out of your mind. You got to bring that thing as stages as close as possible. We arrived in Trinidad. We directed that it must be there in 3 days, Dr. Hines. We put it into the permit. You know what this government did as soon as I left? They increased it to 9 days.
Wow.
To save Exxon money again, because it cost them money. The same thing with dumping of produced water. When you produce the oil, a lot of water comes with it. And it has radioactivity. It's very hot, like 3 times the ocean water. And it has oil in it. It has lead, mercury, all kinds of toxic stuff. They're dumping it into the ocean. And you're supposed to re-inject it back into the reservoir. That's what we had in place. You know what they're doing? They're dumping all of that water because the equipment, they've got to pay money to put that equipment in place. We had that into the permit. They removed it completely. So everything is in Exxon's favor, but against the health, safety, and the environment of the people of Guyana. So every time Jagdeo said that they've improved the environmental permit, it's the biggest lie. I challenge him to come, to debate me in front of everybody. But I know you wouldn't do that, because I would call him out for all of the lies that he tells, So, but that's the situation we've got there. But I and many others like myself, we are like you and everybody else, we are not going to give up. I know it's a challenge for people who live in Guyana. They don't like what's happening, but it's difficult for them to show their heads, because everything is connected politically. Yeah. And they're very vindictive. So people like us who can speak freely, we've got to keep the fight. And this year might be our first big victory, but it's not going to be the last. Guaranteed.
It's not going to be the last. Thank you very much, Dr. Vincent Adams, for coming on tonight and seeking to bring more clarity to this issue. And here's hoping that by the time the case gets to the CCJ, that your prediction would come true. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you, Dr. Hines, and thanks to the audience for listening.
And thank you, the audience. As I always say, without you, we don't have a program. Without you, we can't mobilize. And make no mistake, we are in mobilization mode. And when you mobilize with the truth. And in societies like ours, of course, there are different truths, but the court has made its ruling, and our government has appealed against its own national court. Appeal not for justice for Guyanese, but appeal for justice, so-called justice, for other forces, external forces. The question is, did those external forces have anything to do with the PPP coming to power in 2020? Is it payback time? I didn't want to drag Dr. Adams into that political mess. But as I said, a government does not act so brazenly against its own people if there was not something in it for them. If there was not something in it for them. I'm going to see you all tomorrow night, and we're going to continue this conversation. We come on air tonight. St. Lucia has joined the CCJ, and we hear St. Lucia joining Guyana, Belize, Dominica, and Barbados. St. Lucia is the 5th country. And we hope that others, Jamaica seems very close to joining in. Whatever you may think about some of the rulings of the CCJ against some forces in Guyana during the 2020 electoral impasse, at the end of the day, having our own court, our indigenous court, is always better than depending on the court of other countries, especially a court that comes out of a country that once, quote unquote, owned us. So hail up to St. Lucia for joining the CCJ. It can only expand CARICOM and Caribbean integration. We go off air, of course. We continue to mourn the death of our beloved Sir Mars. No human being should die in the way that brother was killed. We've got to reflect on the level of violence in our society. We've got to reflect on how cheap lives have become. When citizens see the government taking lives or condoning the taking of lives without justice, the society reads something into that. If the government thinks that life is cheap, it's only a matter of time before citizens begin to feel life is cheap. I saw Brian Lara, the Prince of Port of Spain, almost with tears in his eyes, talking about the violence in Trinidad. We are at a crossroads when it comes to the value of human lives. You're a dead society, if lives don't matter. If lives don't matter. Rest in peace. Rest in peace. But even as you rest in peace, rage against violence, Brother Sir Mars. Rage as you did when you were on the picket line or in the demonstrations in front of the parliament. Sleep in peace, but rage against the violence that has taken over our country. I end with David Rudder. Must the beast always overcome the beauty? We have to answer that as citizens. See you all tomorrow night.